Morning, it's Martin from Martin's Engine Services. Well, it's Friday morning. The chaos of yesterday is over for a while with the Vauxhall stock car engine. Gaskets and bolts will be here shortly, and then I can put the head on that one and reassemble that so we got one good functioning engine. So in the meantime, I thought it was a nice peaceful start to the day. I'll start assembling the Puma 1.4 zetec SE. Got the block here all nice and clean. I've washed it off the other week. It's been wrapped up since. I've just blown it out this morning. Checked it, it's all spotlessly clean and ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay the main bearings in the block. With these engines, of course, Ford say you can't take the cranks out, but there's not a problem because thousands of these get rebuilt. The critical point to note is that the main bearings don't have any location tags, so you have to ensure that they are very square in the housings. And also, only the bearings in the block have an oil hole. So, to be aware of that one. They are actually dual hold these in line. So, it doesn't matter which way you put them round, the hole will line up. So, the thrust one goes in the centre. That. There's no actual thrust washers on the upper bearing at all. So, they just rely on the one pair. So all the bearings are dual hold, so I suppose that prevents any disasters there. It's just a question of centralising them in the housing. Not happy with that one. Then once you've got them in there, what I tend to do is get these two parallel bars, just milling machine bars, push down on there and push down on here, just to ensure that they are down level. Just make sure they're down level on the ends. And then I'll give them a little tap with the mallet just to seat them. Put that somewhere, not going to lose it. Right, now what I tend to do then is just give them a little tap down. That's it. They will sit very, very slightly proud, but they're now square. So when you put the cap on, it or the carrier on, it will actually then pinch them up to their required. How about required? That's better mine. The required clamping force, so the bearings are then tight in the housing both sides and can't spin. Quite right. You see, these are quite a thick wall bearing compared to the GM versions. Not very big diameter, but quite robust. I'll come back and tap them all in a moment. It's such a light engine, this is quite ridiculous compared to the GM engine. You pick this block up and just walk off with it, because when you're working on it, there's no weight in the stand. Go. Right, that's it, we're all good to go. So the oil holes are dual oil holes, you can't make a mistake, but always make sure the oil hole does line up with the hole in the block in case you get a variation in engines. Look very well today, my variation in engine blocks and variation in manufacturer bearing. So GM, as I've mentioned previous, are very prone to this sort of scenario. They'll look good, so we'll oil them up and then drop the crank in. That's it. I hate drips of oil on the floor, so we put a tray there. You can catch that. Right, the crank's all nice and clean and oiled. It's been wrapped up since I cleaned it and polished it the other day. So just carefully lower that into place. And making sure you got that bit at the front. That could be quite an amusing one. Settle it down. Yeah. That spins nicely, so that's good. Now we've got to seat the bearings in the main bearing carrier. Now again, it's exactly the same procedure. They do have a slight cutout here to help the oil carry on. Again, they're not handed in any way, so they just go in again, just centralise them, and in there where you're happy, and in they go. In fact, I do this on the bench because everything's going flying in a minute. Right, where they are, they've all settled in there nicely. Same procedure, tap them down, so that's fine. Just oil everything up. Now this isn't actually marked front and back, because often they never intend you to take it off. However, I've marked it, 0 here, 0 into front, and also there are more bolt holes on the windage tray of the oil pickup to the front, so just point to note, it will go in the other way round happily. On the Duratec 2 litres and 1800s, there's a bit of a shape on here which hits the block. This one will, quite simply, fit either way round. So you could have quite an interesting day there. Say I've stamped an O on the block and an O on there, or an X, whatever, so you know it's right. This, you just basically locate this central, drop the bolts in. Lost the bolts, only got one. Usual thing, oil the threads, oil under the bolt heads. The Fords don't actually offer the workshop managers an exact torque setting for these bolts and stuff, say, because they recommend they can't be done. But I have managed to obtain this from a company that does a lot of engine parts for Fords and various other manufacturers. They specialise mostly in Ford, and they do actually list on their website the parts for all these, and next to all the various parts they sell, like bearings and stuff, they do actually list all the torque settings, which is very handy. Basically, to make sure it's centralised, it's literally a case of make sure the bolts are basically sitting nicely, and they're not obviously pulled to one side, and they all go down without binding on the thread, so they all look fine. So I'm going to wind these down. Just start to seat it carefully. Don't go crazy heaving it down. Just seat it gently so everything sits in place nicely. It starts to pull in square. Nothing binds up, nothing gets damaged. It's always a case of, if it's not going nicely and it's not feeling right, stop, find out why. Things should go together nicely with accurately machined components and should not require any serious amounts of force to get them to fit. Right, then we've got to get this down, then we've got to tap everything around. In fact, I just noticed there's an arrow inside there after all this time, which must point to forwards, but don't ever fall for that with manufacturers, because they may put it on the other way around. Sometimes there are multiple applications and whatnot, and some of those marks may not be what you think they are. If you're not sure, check it yourself. Right, give them a little snug. There we go, look at that. Beautiful. Didn't even have to tap that, but we'll do it just for good measure. You'll remember the one I took to pieces that had about 1.5 mil of end float in the crank that way. But that feels very nice. Just got that nice bit of stick on nice new bearings. Bearing in mind this crankshaft is a used one out of another engine, so but it's the same part number and all the rest of it. So I've polished it. I measured the journals; they're absolutely perfect and in factory spec. They're right on the upper limit. So yep, we're good. I like that. Now the torquing down procedure is 3 lots of torque and then 2 lots of 90 degrees. So I won't bore you with that one. I'll pause it for now. I'll tighten all that up and I'll bring you back once the stage is over. Right, well there we go, that's it all tightened up. It's hilarious fun with this lightweight engine because it keeps flying around when you're trying to do it, but yep, sitting in there really nicely. It's got that nice feel to it, it just spins nicely, but it's not sticking, but it just stops nicely. You can always tell when they're happy, because if they stop, and initially there's a little bit of bite or a little bit of bind, and you try and move them, that's not right, but this one just stops, moves again nicely. And just for the hell of it, we give it one more. And yeah, got in float. Yeah. Okay, so that's the crankshaft in. I'm really pleased with that. Yeah, that's nice, that is. Right, now to fit the rear oil seal, just to find the bolts. Found the bolts, found the seal. Where's the gasket sealer? True to form, the gasket sealer doesn't want to come out of the tube. Technical problems, folks, please stand by. And the right old mess we got into here. There's more gasket sealer on the screwdriver and on me than there'll ever be in the engine. Right, let's have a recap here, regroup. Now these seals do incorporate a rubber gasket, which is normally not a problem. I just like to put a tiny little bit in the corners, just where it's going to meet the sump, just to be on the safe side. This one I'm using here is actually the rubber type seal. The other one, some of the others have that kind of a composite seal that requires a installation tool, but the spring rubber type will go on quite easily. So get them in place, get them over. There are some location dowels pressed into the oil seal carrier. It's got a built-in rubber gasket here again that the sump sits on. Just in them corners there, I like to be on the safe side. Fortunately, these Ford engines, these zetecs and that, don't seem overly prone to oil leaks. So, this is unlike the GM equivalent. I mean, when I cleaned this block, there's hardly any deposits on it whatsoever. So, considering it's 25 odd years old now, can't really complain at that. It's just that little area there. I don't know if that's actually, you might not even be in shot anymore. You still are. So it's most of those little areas here, which is the area of concern. Because the sump sticks on, glues onto this seal here. But as you can see, the gasket sealer has just come out of the little groove at the side. So the rubber seal on here is sort of about there. So if there's any leakage there, there is an area to go. So I just like to put a little bit extra there to be safe. Right, there we go. Again, these are those little bolts that do not have to be torqued up to anything astronomical. So it has a built-in rubber gasket, so no point in crushing the housing into the block. It won't achieve anything. Right, there we go, just wipe that little surface off there. Perfect. The one thing I am going to stick in, which is an easy one to forget, I think I mentioned in the previous video on these, there's a timing sensor sits in the flywheel just around the back here, and it has a separate part bolted in to house it. Easy to forget. Now these are actually different from the automatic and the manual engines. If we get it in focus, it says on here, manual. And on the automatic, they have moved this sensor hole over about half a hole. Now I think I mentioned we did this before, that I can help a friend of mine convert her focus from automatic to manual, and we didn't realise that was different. So we took the gearbox off, torque converter drive plate, we put the manual flywheel and clutch in, and we're cranking it over to get it to start. We've got loads of backfiring, so we have a timing error. And we thought, well, how can you have a timing error on a fixed timing engine with a crank sensor? And after a lot of research, we discovered, we took it all apart again, and on here it said auto. So that was one of those live and learn moments. I always think of that and think of the fun it caused us. The fact it then bolts in from the block this way, obviously the sensor bolts in from that way, which is no problem, but it was a little bit of a head scratcher. And that is also done up to the same torque as the rear back oil seal. There we go. Go around these other ones and check them again while I'm here. Check that one again while we're here. Right, that's it, and I'll put the crank sensor in later because I'll put it in after the flywheel. So if you put the flywheel on, you don't hit the end of the sensor. But let's put that thing in, we don't want to forget. That's it, so that's all in place. I suppose the next thing to do is to do the oil pump. I like to do them in a set order. And once this is done, see the mains are sitting out nicely there. Oil's coming out nicely, so that's good. So I'll just go and get the oil pump ready and I'll bring you back in a mo. Oh, hit the stand. Right, oil pump time. Now I always use a good quality gasket. See, this one has the rubber incorporated as well. It does actually come around the corners completely on this one, so when the sump sits on it does seal fine. The oil pump itself does have location dowels on the back. No need to put any seal on this whatsoever. It does have location, drop it into the engine, location dowels for accurate alignment. I have already stripped this oil pump down completely, checked it inside, it's absolutely perfect. So I put a new seal in. I'm going to prime it because I haven't done the plug up yet. I've got to prime it. So I'm going to do my usual trick, which I know absolutely mortifies people. Right, get the oil pump on its drive. Just very, very carefully. Orientate the pump. It should line on its dowels. Click. Gasket lines up. Lovely. Because I always like to pour some oil through these oil pumps, so when the engine's upside down, I'll pour a load of oil through it. Sitting nicely. So there's one extra, there's two long bolts, one medium and the rest are all short. I was trying to find a home for that one there. Ford's actually colour code them, it's quite ironical. They colour code that one black and all the rest gold, so you really can't get those wrong, but quite a good idea. Nip down the two with the location dowel first, just to make sure it's gone down square. It has nicely, then just check it's all right there. You do have to trim sometimes a little bit the rubber off under there, but it's not a problem. Right. And there we go. So that knit down. They're also the same torque as the rear oil seal and the timing sensor plate. There was no particular order to that, I don't know really. I'll go around the normal way this time, but no idea what was behind that thinking. As I like to do is leave them like that for a while, then I'll come back and run round again. I mean, the gasket shouldn't move, of course, but it's just a precautionary check. So that's that in there. Oil pumps on, rotating assemblies in. So the next stage to move on to is pistons and rings. I'll do one piston ring and that, because you've all seen that many times. I have already checked the end gaps on the rings, they're perfect. So I'll get a piston rod ready, stick one down the hole, and that'll conclude that, I think. Right, we have a piston ready to go. So number 1, I've marked all the rods so I know where they come from. So I'll stick it in number 4 just to get everybody confused. That you can actually do because you had the engine upside down one way on the stand, number 1's up there. Now you flipped it over, you've got to remember that. So it's arrows to the front. They're the snapped cap type again as usual, so it's a question of centralise the bearing. Got the crank set down there at TDC or number 1, no, B, bottom dead centre, sorry. So pop him in there. Find the beating the piston into place tool. Tap it down gently. Right, stop. That one hasn't gone down nicely. You all heard it go tight and it stopped. Yep. Reclamp it. What you've got to be careful of is that sometimes at the gap in the end of the ring can be close to the overlap on the valve spring compressor. No, Martin, you've got all the wrong tools there, mate. Piston ring clamp, that's it. Right, I've clamped it up again. That looks all fine. So we shall repeat the exercise again. That's why you go gently and listen for any change. There we go, it went nice that time. If it doesn't go in after the second try, get a great big 14-pound hammer and just beat it in. It's bound to go in with enough persuasion. No, please don't do that. Guaranteed way to break piston rings. Line him up in the crankshaft. He's gone a wandering. Click, there we go. Double check the arrows pointing towards the front. Turn it upside down again, near enough to confuse things. And then pop the cap on. Always making sure, of course, that they are spotlessly clean inside here. A little bit of dirt, or even if you put oil in them, will just lift the bearing off. They've got to be that clean. And likewise, check the back of the bearing, because sometimes they have like a thick oil coating or protective coating on that can be in sort of lumps in places sometimes. They've been stored a while. So again, just make sure. You can do the old line it up job, but being that the surfaces are just snap cap type, so it's a case of visually align it in the middle and away you go. plenty of oil. You can work out which way around it went by looking at the shape of the offset. It won't go on the wrong way around. If you try it, it's stuck now. If you try it the wrong way, it just won't even go near. You can get some idea as well by looking, because you can see that the way it's sort of broken off there at that angle, and that's going that way. And a quick visual will check it. You can't really see the numbers on the side of these very easily, and you think a wise man would have just put it on the bench the right way around the way it come off, but no, that's a bit too easy. Because the girdle plate's in the way, you can't, or free plate's in the way, you can't really see exactly what the numbers are, but say, you soon find out. I suppose if you was really determined, I bet somebody has bolted them on the wrong way around, but that'd be quite spectacular. I like to just nip them up and see if they got side play, and then that's fine. I'll do the torque and angles on them all later. There's just enough movement there. Nice. I did actually check one of the rods and bearings on the crank, being that the crank wasn't out of the engine. I did bolt one on the bench the other day and just check it, and it was fine. So I've no suspicion there's any problem there. So this crank's actually right on the upper end of spec from Ford. It's well, you might as well say perfect. So I'm pleased with that. Right, well I think I'll pause things there for now, and then I'll stick all the other pistons in, and then it'll be sump and griddle plate and no. I'm getting confused this morning, folks. What's it called? Windage tray. An oil pick and sump. I'll come back and do that as a separate little video, I think, and a few other little bits, because it's going to get a bit lengthy otherwise. Anyhow, I know it probably wasn't the most exciting assembly video, but it's been a nice peaceful morning. No one's interrupted me, so we're going to have a nice cup of tea and come back, proceed with part 2. Thanks very much indeed for watching, and bye for now.